1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Welcome back to the TMCJ podcast. We are on episode 56, and I honestly did not remember the episode number. During that intro, I had to look down at my notepad.
I have to do it every time I do a new thumbnail. I've got to look at the previous one. I'm like, okay, it's probably one more than the last one.
It's like, wait, what episode are we on again?
Which is what got really confusing that time when you did one of the thumbnails.
Oh, right.
And I made
the
thumbnail for the wrong week.
The wrong week. I had to remind, like, that was last week, and I did that one.
I was pissed. You said it, and I was like, I only have myself to blame, but fuck me.
We're very professional here. So, we decided to start. We actually were going to start about a half hour ago, and then we ended up having like a 25-minute conversation about everything under the sun, including fiddles, Whole Foods, haircuts, Belgium. Yeah, it just
and most of it we can't share on the podcast.
Although I will share my hatred for fucking places like Whole Foods. Don't get me wrong; they're probably good people that work there and everything like that. I just really
You're say, but your hatred for hippies.
No, it's down. That's what it is. I hate hippies and I hate California, and the only reason that stores like that thrive is because of hippies in California. Although the hippies have grown up, like now the hippies are like pretentious, middle-aged white people.
At least these days, hippies kind of care about their appearance.
It depends on the hippies.
I guess.
I mean,
what I'm thinking of, I'm not thinking of hippies. What I'm thinking of is like
hipsters.
Hipsters, yes.
And I think I'm thinking of hipsters as well, and I'm saying hippies. So hippies,
yeah,
if you're out there, I'm
hipsters,
sorry.
I think of like the fucking Apple dude. What's his name?
Oh, Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs with the polo neck and the glasses.
Yeah.
Like that's
your turtleneck is what you're thinking of, but yeah.
What did I say? Polo.
You said polo neck, yeah.
Right.
But yeah,
it's because I look like a hipster today. Apparently.
Yeah, he's got his hair pulled back.
I have. That's the only reason. The fact that I'm wearing a floral Hawaiian shirt, my normal one.
I'm surprised my hair is this put together. Like I literally, I haven't showered yet. I rolled out of bed and then did this.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's pretty late for you, to be fair.
I got up at 6:30.
Yeah.
But then I was making breakfast and on the phone with my parents and stuff.
Anyway.
So we actually did have a serious topic today, very topical, and hopefully not too controversial for the podcast, although we've ventured into that territory previously and with mild success. Yeah. No, Afghanistan.
I will be playing the part of the clueless person who doesn't understand anything, and Kaiser will be playing the part of the person who thinks he knows too much about the subject. So, there you go.
So yeah, the thing that's kind of on everyone's mind at the moment, or that's being talked about constantly at the moment. Keep in mind, this is what we're going to be talking about is facts as of the 21st of August.
Yeah, I was dating this video very hard.
Yeah, because this is something that's going to change quite a bit. But Afghanistan, the whole rise and fall and fall and fall and fall. So the reason for that is like I've been alive throughout the entire conflict. I was 14 or 15, I think, when it actually started in 2003, and here I am now, like as it's ending, and it's something that kind of just going through a few facts on the topic. Going in there, I didn't have a problem with because we were going after, like, a terrorist that bombed the U.S., right?
Yeah.
And, well, bombed, but did some, 9/11. That made sense. But then he escaped to Pakistan, and we eventually got him, and it's like, why are we still there? It became like we wanted to, like, build up, like, an allied nation in the area, but with absolutely no idea how governments in that territory have functioned historically. The only people who have successfully colonized Afghanistan have been the Persians and the British, and they did it in two very simple ways. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I see you give the fucking like smile on your face when I said that. But they did it in two very simple ways. They didn't bother any of the people in the mountains, the tribesmen, and all they did was they took over the major cities, heavily fortified them, and secured the trade routes. And that worked. They didn't bother trying to conquer the whole thing. We, thinking that, we're America, we can do whatever the fuck we want. We go in there and try to conquer the entire country. And as a result, all the tribes banded together, and that's what the Taliban is, and then came after us and kicked us out. Well, not kicked us out. Like, if we had left like a token force in there, the whole thing wouldn't have fallen apart, but...
Yeah, it was the kind of thing where both sides had enough resources at their disposal. It could have gone on for fucking ever. It still will go on. I'm assuming America's not still just going to keep walking away. I don't know what their current ethos is.
So this is something that has been happening in the U.S. for getting into the boring topic of geopolitics for a second. This is something that has been American policy starting with Obama and kind of expanding under Trump and then continuing under Biden. And that's that, there's no real political will in the U.S. to be the world's police officer anymore. So we're kind of pulling back in. Like, the U.S. basically has all the resources it needs within its own borders. We have, like, every mineral and metal that we need.
But it'll never be enough, Kaiser. The world is not enough for
but it will eventually, go back out again. But the U.S. has done this previously, where we're just like, we don't want to deal with you people anymore, and we just kind of entrench.
Yeah.
It happened in the 1800s.
I think it's a good thing. Like, locally sourced stuff tends to be better for
better quality, yeah. And it builds up. I think it's good to have your own industries internally. So that's what we're going through right now. So I think that's the whole Afghanistan pullout is part of that. But what's annoying is how we did it. Like there are intelligent ways to pull out of like a region like that, and then there's what happened. And what happened was herp derp, we're leaving tomorrow. And then we just pulled everything out, didn't even evacuate all the people that we needed to. Like, there's still, like, I think something like 10,000 Americans in Afghanistan who are trapped.
Yeah. The embassy and stuff.
I'm pissed about there's a reason that Americans almost never got kidnapped abroad. And the reason that Americans almost never got kidnapped abroad is, and other nationalities did, is that a lot of governments, their policy was, okay, we'll pay the ransom and then we'll take the person back. So it made it an industry. America's response was always, okay, you kidnapped one of our citizens, missiles.
Yeah, the whole, we don't negotiate with terrorists.
Yeah, exactly. It became a bit of a meme, but as a result, terrorists learned that, okay, if we kidnap an American by accident, release him immediately, get him out of here. Because they know that they're fucked if they keep him.
Yeah.
Now with this, and it used to be a similar concept with like, if people were trapped abroad, like in a war zone or something like that, the warring factions knew that like, okay, we're in a civil war or something like that, but let the Americans go so that, the bombs don't start raining down. And it is a bit annoying, the tepid and just limp-dicked response that we've had to this. Like, we should not have pulled out our military until every single like American was out of that territory. So I'm being like I'm going like a bit patriotic here, but it's something that genuinely annoys me how we've done this. Like
of all the sources that I've read up on it, and I haven't been many, don't get me wrong. I haven't seen anyone having any good view of what America's doing at the moment, whether the generals or like what was it? So I was watching Angry Cops, another YouTuber, and he was like, you could ask any enlisted man below a certain rank, and they could tell you that every one of those trained soldiers that they had given to the Afghani government, were like shit at their job.
That was some
not
of
been trained properly.
That was the thing. Like, they actually... I was watching... there's a documentary that came out in, like, 2013, 2014 called, This Is What Winning Looks Like, or something like that. And it was after we first started, like, pulling out militarily and were turning things over to the Afghans.
Yeah.
And some of the soldiers, like, they'd go up to, like, a guard post and, like, the army consultants, and they're looking around like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, the barricades weren't set up properly. All the soldiers were just chilling out. They were high on, like, weed and heroin, like, just laying off to the side. And it was just, they ended up, like, having to, in the scene, they ended up having to, like, recruit civilians to set up the barricade because the soldiers were too high to do it. And so, it's one of those, when people look at the raw numbers, like, yes, the Afghan government that had, like, 300,000 trained troops versus the Taliban's, like, 20 to 70,000 or something like that. But all of those troops were shit.
Well, yeah, and we're not saying that, like, every single Afghani soldier was, like, shit and lazy and that.
But it was a very...
certain majority of them...
Yeah. Once you get past a certain threshold...
Yeah, like, the moment that the parents go out for the night, which is essentially America going back to their home...
Yeah.
The kids fucking panic and get themselves shot. Like,
well, and this is...
That was a terrible analogy.
That was an awful analogy, but I knew where you were going with it, and that is sort of what happened.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you only need, like, a certain... You see this with ancient battles all the time. You only need, like, a certain percentage of the military force to break and run before it gets contagious, and everyone does, even the good soldiers.
Yeah, it's a morale thing. You see it in all kinds of games these days, like Rome Total War, and all the Total Wars that have gone after. When the captain dies, that's a big morale kill. Even though it's one person, it's the person that everyone is looking to for orders.
Yeah.
And so without orders, shit just goes to shit.
And that's one of the things that does make, little, again, me being a bit patriotic, but it's one of the things that makes the U.S. military fairly effective is there's a large degree of, leadership and independence training given to, like, the rank and file soldiers. So even if, like, command is cut off at, like, the squad leader level, they can still function very well.
Yeah, there's a what's the word? A chain of command.
Yeah, and all the way down, like, people, like, you can, even if that chain is cut at some point, it can still function very well.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I don't want to get too caught up in this. That's what's happened, basically. But there are funny things that have come out of this.
Well, we haven't actually said what's happened.
Well, what's happened is, the U.S. Sorry, I thought we had for some reason. The U.S. pulled out of Afghanistan. We had a long time to do it, and then just decided to fiddle around and touch ourselves for 6 months.
Provided a lot of very high-end equipment to the Afghani government.
So normally, what you do, what the U.S. has historically done in war zones is we leave our equipment behind. We always do. Because it's cheaper just to make more equipment back home than to take it home. The transport costs are ridiculous. In this case, though, there was a plan in place back in the winter to actually take our equipment back this time because we didn't want it, getting into the hands of the Taliban.
Yeah.
That plan was never implemented, and so we just left it all behind.
Well, it wouldn't have been, like, a problem. It would have been good for the Afghani government to use. If
they had stayed afloat for any amount of time. But what happened was they fell in a week. Like, we were gone, and then the whole government collapsed. And now the Taliban is the new government.
Don't know much. I don't know. What's the response to this from America?
So it's been mixed. You have a lot of people going like, "Oh, this is." You've got a lot of, like, lower level normal people going like, "This is horribly irresponsible. How could we let this happen? This is disgusting." And then you've got the people at the top dodging blame as hard as they can.
Yeah, I feel like some pretty hardcore, what's the word? Investigation needs to go into the top level of the army.
What? But it's not even the... So it's funny. The president and vice president have had interesting responses.
Sorry, not the army, the military, because that... Anyway, go on.
Yeah. So, what I've heard so far, Biden did an interview, and in the interview, he basically said, "That's not my problem. They have to sort their own shit out." The vice president, Kamala,
did he ask them to pull out?
Oh, yeah, he was the one that orchestrated this whole thing.
Okay.
So, basically, what happened was Trump had like a plan for how we were going to pull out. He set the date for pulling out, which was May 1st. Okay. Negotiated like a peace treaty with the Taliban and said, no fighting. We are going to pull out on this date, and he was going to spend. Yes.
Negotiating peace with the Taliban.
Yeah,
classically reliable.
Not a very. But the thing is, it worked. It worked because there was no fighting up until now, and he, like, again, a bit sketchy, and it was very weird because he didn't involve the government of Afghanistan. He like the U.S. negotiated around the government with the terrorists. It was.
To be fair, that kind of sounds like just cutting out the middleman is kind of maybe a good thing because government didn't do shit.
I mean, yeah, maybe that was the reason behind it. But that happened, and the plan was we pull out on May 1st, and the idea was that we would like do things in scale, like we'd pull the equipment out, would pull the people out, then by May 1st would pull the military out.
Yeah.
That plan was going until, so Biden takes over, and he just stopped implementing that plan. So nothing happened for about 4 months, 5 months, or 6 months. And then finally...
So it was a gradual, things were gradually being pulled out.
That was the plan, and it stopped around... Well, it stopped when he got elected. And then... Then the Taliban was like, well, we negotiated for May 1st. They're still here, and it's not May 1st. And so the fighting started up again after May.
Weird that the Taliban were the ones that kind of kept the deal.
Yeah, it says a lot, and it's another thing that's kind of shameful, I think, about this whole thing from a U.S. perspective. So they then started taking over a lot of territory. It looked like the Afghani government had 300,000 troops. Like, okay, it's going to take them a while to take Kabul, and so we pulled out our military, and we were going to pull out the people next. But they took it in 2 weeks. They took the capital in 2 weeks. It completely fell apart. The troops just fucking ran.
Yeah.
And so that was the progression of things. And so now we've got the president saying it's not my problem. We get the vice president who hasn't been seen in a couple weeks. She's trying to distance herself from this as much as possible. She's like,
what did she do?
Her excuse is she's dealing with humanitarian issues in South America and the Caribbean.
No, but what input did she have into the Afghani crisis?
As far as I know, nothing.
Oh. She's just a higher person in government, and so she's hiding.
Yeah, basically she's just...
Okay,
everyone is dodging blame
for
this. You've got whistleblowers coming out and saying, they were warned about this repeatedly and just did nothing, and yada, yada, yada. That's where that is. But... So that's all the serious stuff. Did I miss anything? Is there any other questions? Any other thoughts that you're having on this?
No, go on.
Because we've been very serious up until now. I want to get on to the funny things.
Oh, well. So just to round this up, what you're saying is essentially what happened is it was like in Star Wars where Anakin changed sides and took all the rebel troopers and turned them to the dark side. That's essentially what's happened here. Yeah?
Are you saying that the Taliban executed Order 66?
I'm saying, yes, the Taliban are the Empire.
I mean, it's sort of true, and one of the funny things about all of this is, so the Taliban are very strict on, they're hardcore, old school religious, and so they have some very particular things about women's rights,
Yeah.
Because
if you're about to say what I think you're about to say from just now, before the thing...
No, it's not.
Okay, I was going to say, I wouldn't say that's necessarily a funny thing, it's...
No.
But yeah.
This thing is funny.
Okay.
So, they are now essentially the de facto government of Afghanistan.
Right.
Afghanistan was recently elected to the UN Commission on Women's Rights. The Taliban is now on the UN Commission of Women's Rights.
I mean, I'm assuming they've already been struck from the record. The moment that happened.
They haven't yet. As of yesterday,
yesterday, representative's going to turn up at the UN, is it?
I really think it might. I'm making light of a very serious topic here.
Yeah.
But it is one of these weird ironies of, like, government. Where you can have, like a hardcore, very, very, like, regressive kind of, like, government who basically it's like, women can't do all of these things. They have to wear, like, all these, they wear a veil. They can't be seen in public. They can't drive without a male escort. They can't do all these other things. And now they are on the UN Commission of Women's Rights.
I mean, if Afghanistan's in that, then surely there must be a lot of countries in that, on that board.
I think it's only like 5 or 6.
Or is it like countries that have recently kind of reformed their ways?
No. It's a commission. So basically, the way the UN works is, so like they have the Security Council, right, which is the the big players on the world, the ones with nukes, basically. And then they have like other little commissions on things, and so they'll elect a couple nations, and like you're a commission on this, and you have to think up useless ideas on how to solve this. And so there were like 5 or 6 nations. I think it was 5 or 6. It's usually 5 or 6 in these things. And like you 5 or 6 nations will. It's funny.
Hey, so let me get this straight. They gave Afghanistan the mission, as it were, of coming up with better rights for women.
Yeah. It's weird. I hate the UN. Like, I'm not trying to understand it. I think the UN is a fucking joke.
That's like putting Russia on the board to stop alcoholism. Like...
Don't get me wrong, it's a dumb idea. I think it's fucking stupid, but it's what happened. And now, as a result, the Taliban might be on that commission. Excuse me. And this is what I mean, is like, it's a very serious situation. I got the grim dark stuff out of the way in the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of these things where everyone has two minds on these things. Some people say, it's best to make light of situations so then we can understand them and get past them, kind of in our heads. And other people say, oh, it's too soon, kind of thing. It's not very respectful. I am... Personally, I don't mind which way a person goes. I'm perfectly happy with making light of a situation like that.
I can take things seriously if I have to, but I'm very much on the make light of things side of it.
If we were talking about the death count or something, okay, that's different.
Yeah.
But
you don't
the
want to,
situation in a whole, the ironies of it are quite funny.
The other funny thing is, like, the Taliban has refused to, like, negotiate with a lot of world governments. Just because they've been enemy combatants for a while. But
America lied to us, so we're not going to talk to you anymore.
But they are willing to talk to random people on Twitter. The Taliban, by the way, still have a Twitter account. They have
so Trump got his ban.
Yeah, Trump got his ban, but a terrorist organization still has theirs.
That really speaks like volumes, doesn't it?
There was an instance I was listening to like a news story about yesterday. Just a random dude on Twitter from Spain, like, DM'd the Taliban and asked them to, like, allow the Spanish diplomats out.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh yeah, they'll be fine. And the Spanish diplomats are getting an escort by the Taliban out.
Yeah, no, I've heard about that.
It's like, God. It's just like a random. But I just.
Like, imagine like the Taliban. They've been banned from Twitter. Like, oh shit, where can we go to next? The hot tub streams on Twitch. Taliban hot tub streams coming now.
So it's interesting. They've been banned off of. They had a YouTube channel. It's been banned. They had a Facebook channel or a Facebook group. It's been banned. But their Twitter is still up. But yeah, no, former president of the United States, he can't be on there.
Although, hey, when they do finally get banned, that the headline is going to be Taliban.
Oh my god.
Sorry about that.
No, that was a bad pun. But so the other funny thing about all this, and you mentioned that you knew a bit about it, was the British kid that ended up over there. Yeah. So the full story of it, because I have actually watched an interview with him now that he's safe. he wanted to do some like charity work, right? And he's like, okay, so I'm going to go to like some war-torn kind of country. And he did like a cursory Google search.
Yeah, I heard he had a he looked up the top 10 list of most dangerous countries to visit, and he kind of...
Yeah, and so he went there with like some money and stuff, intending to do charity work. Was his thinking.
He went to Chernobyl and
got a gas mask. Yeah, I heard about that.
A gas mask, which he then sold for more than the trip's worth.
So he's a bit of a thrill seeker.
Yeah,
and in his defense, he did like consult with intelligence agencies and stuff, and everyone was telling him like, oh yeah, it's it's not going to fall, like it's got 90 days at least before the Taliban take over, etc., etc.
Have you heard about the whole lordship thing?
Yes, yeah, he called himself Lord Miles or something like that.
Yes, you can get these like shitty certificates online for pretty much like anywhere you can become a lord.
Yeah.
Do you want to continue? Because I'm sure you have more details of it than I do.
Yeah, so his idea was he got his certificate to make him, a lord, and it said it on all of his cards and stuff over there, so his thinking
he went to a bank, and they would he was like, can you put lord on my thing? And they were like, sure. It's like...
And so his thinking was that if the Taliban captured him, they'd say the Lord and assume that he was, high value, and they wouldn't just kill him outright. Anyway, so he ended up getting stuck over there, and for like it wasn't clear if he was going to get out. Flights got canceled out of the country, and he eventually ended up making his way to like a safe house with some soldiers and stuff like that.
Yeah, and he was in like the airport going to leave. Then he saw there were like Taliban in the airport.
Yeah,
and so he went to the embassy, I believe.
Yeah, and then he eventually had to get out of there and get to the airport again. And one of the ironies of the whole thing was like near the end, like he was thinking like, oh god, this is after they had taken over for a few days. He actually got a Taliban escort to the airport.
Yeah.
And
well, I guess it kind of makes sense, because if you're like on record from the government where they're like, okay, I'm coming back to the UK now.
Yeah.
The Taliban, they get no value from killing this kid.
No, and I think it does make sense logically from their perspective, because if they kill him, they risk, Western countries going back in there and fighting them again.
Yeah, which I'm sure I don't think this is going to die quietly, but I guess it doesn't harm their cause to let that pass.
Yeah. Well, they're already like they're being magnanimous in a lot of ways to try and do everything they can to avoid further intervention from other countries.
They've got their foot in the door. They don't need any more violence right now. They just need to show that they've got a big fucking dick and they're swinging it around.
Yeah. Which, if they've been doing interviews, they've been doing press conferences.
Yeah, they're trying to set up an actual fucking country. It's kind of...
They did a press conference, and I watched it, and it was the best... It was fucking hilarious. Oh my god.
What did they ask them?
Oh, sorry?
What did they ask them?
Like everything under the sun, like everything you'd ask, it's like, oh, so what is, what do you think this is going to mean for like the former government and stuff like that? And they're like,
right.
And they said something along the lines of, anyone who doesn't contest the transition will be fine, but we will not tolerate, whatever. And I can't remember exactly what it was, but they asked the big one that came up a few times was like, oh, what is this going to mean for for women's rights? Will women still be allowed to participate in government? And their response was like, women will be able to do anything they could, but under Sharia. This is the new law of the land. And
what's Sharia law again?
Sharia law.
I've heard of it.
Islam actually has a very interesting and unique thing among the Abrahamic religions in that it actually has a legal code built into it, and that's what Sharia is. So Sharia is it's a legal code that's essentially interpreted from the Quran, from the Hadiths,
right, religious law,
and from like the life of Muhammad. So they take all three of those things together, and they've created a legal code, and that's what Sharia is. There's interpretation, there's wiggle room in it, which is why you get different factions doing slightly different things. But
so, did they say that they can be a member of government as long as they're like wearing face covering and that kind of thing?
They weren't specific.
Okay.
They weren't specific. They just said as long as it complies with Sharia, they will be allowed, whatever rights and privileges, which isn't. If the sect of Islam that the Taliban follows is relatively strict. So when they say that, what they're essentially saying is they can participate, but not much, really.
Yeah, okay. It seems like they're trying to come off more human.
That's what the impression I've been getting by watching like the statements they've been making and listening to the stuff coming out of them, is they're trying to appear like just a normal, legitimate government to the outside world, so no one comes back in.
Yeah. I see.
It's a weird and wacky situation.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting month or two over there.
Yeah, I'm still following it because again, this is a war that's been going on for close to 2/3 of my life.
Yeah. Oof. Yeah, heavy stuff, but I don't know, maybe.
But there are like, it is, like I said, it's a very situous. Oh my god, a very situous seriation. A very serious situation is what I was trying to say. It's a very serious situation, but there are goofy and lighthearted. Like there's humor to be had.
Yeah, like I don't know. Was there much of a toll in the takeover?
Not really. So, not that we know.
Because from what I hear, there's
say.
a lot of running away. So I don't know how many people actually got.
So there was a lot of chaos and a lot of people who were, let's say, friendly to the U.S. occupation have disappeared.
Right.
Presumed dead. But in terms of like outright violence against the civilian population, it's basically been nil.
Yeah, something that was said from the British guy was that his translator had worked for the government, and so they were actively after his head.
Yeah, and I heard him say that in the interview that I watched, was that he's actively working to try and get that guy extradited because he did a lot to keep this kid alive.
Safe, yeah.
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 I don't know. But I'll be watching it pretty closely, just because it's been something that's fascinating. So, and I know this is not really something that we normally talk about on the podcast, but it's something that is topical, serious, and has some amusing memes to it. So,
yeah, because we occasionally do serious stuff.
Yeah, I like to pepper it in every now and again.
Yeah, it's like, you know how a couple of weeks ago we talked about Blizzard. So that had already been going on for a couple of weeks before that, and people are still fucking talking about it. It's like, alright, talk about it once. If something revolutionary comes out, bring it up in a new video. But otherwise...
Yeah, don't just beat the dead horse over and over again.
I feel like that's what a lot of people are doing. And yeah, I don't know. We talked to each other about it a bit, but there's not been anything revolutionary different. I mean, as far as I'm concerned. So.
I think I mentioned this in the podcast, but I've actually I read the legal document, like the lawsuit against them, because it's public record, and it reads like a 2014 YouTube video.
Yeah,
it's I don't know what cheap ass lawyer they got, but it's nonsense.
I mean, even if the case comes to nothing, the hit has already really been done on Blizzard.
Yeah, This could
Sorry,
be another
we're literally talking about it now. Sorry.
This could be another rabbit hole we could go down. But the only thought I'll have is this is a flaw, I think, in the way that social media has changed how we discuss things. Is the damage is done by an accusation, not by an act. So it's not that anything has been confirmed to be wrong there. It's that someone has accused wrongdoing, and so Blizzard is fucked.
Yeah.
And that's a
and
very
I do
bad
think
way
that Blizzard have done some really shitty stuff.
Well, yeah. I mean, they released what is it? Runes of Pandaria? For WoW.
Mists of Pandaria.
Whatever it is. Yeah.
I've never even played the game, mate.
Neither have I.
You have?
I was just
played a little bit.
Well, yeah, but maybe like 10 hours total.
Yeah. Unlike the mighty 11 days and 12 hours I have on Final Fantasy.
You have been playing that game pretty crazy. Like I've been
had it a few weeks. Like I looked at the number and I was like, oh my god.
I need to get back to it. I took a couple days off because Kevin and Jake were down, but I do want to play more of it. I was playing a little bit.
Yeah, you've been very busy during the day. I always catch you like right at the end of the day when you're exhausted, and it's like damn. Anyway, let's not go on about this. We have segment 2 to get to.
All right, and segment 2, we didn't do movie night, but I do have a movie to talk about because I watched one with Kevin when he was down, the Big Labowski. Which, God, all right. This is going to be the end of segment 1 of the TMCJ podcast. Thank you all for listening, and you will hear us again momentarily for segment 2. Welcome back to the TMCJ podcast. We are on segment 2, our media segment. We didn't do movie night this week, but I technically did. My cousins were down, and one of the nights we were going through Netflix and trying to find like a movie to watch at the end of the night, and stumbled upon a movie that I'd heard a lot about, seen referenced repeatedly, but had not watched myself, and that is The Big Labowski. You had your finger up. What?
I just had a thought there is actually a topic I would like to discuss. It'll be about 10 minutes, so if we can save it for the end. Sorry for the cut-in.
No, it's fine. This probably won't take up the whole time anyway. Okay. But the movie is like late 90s, and it's about a guy called the Dude named Lebowski, Jeff Lebowski. Okay. It's part of a bowling club.
Jeff Labowski.
Jeff Labowski, yes.
Nice. Good name. Solid.
And he, he's just like the chillest man on earth. Like, he lives in a he's coming home in the beginning of it, and like two gangsters, like, practically drown him in his own toilet to try and like, it's like, oh, where's the money? And like, oh, your wife borrowed all this money and stuff like that. And, like, there's at one point where like the guy pulls his head out of the toilet and goes like, do you remember where it is now? And he's just like, no, I think, but put me back in there. I think I almost found it. And so the whole start of the story is like one of the gangsters like pisses on his carpet, right? Says just like, oh, fuck you kind of thing. And then
I think it's a comedy.
It is, yeah. And he eventually convinces me, he's like, look at this. Do you see a ring? I'm not fucking married. Look at this place. Does it look like I have any money? He's in like a shitty apartment.
Yeah. And
so they're like, oh shit, we got the wrong place. And they leave. And then he's talking about this to like his two buddies at like his bowling club. Like they're part of a bowling team. One of them's like this spindly, nerdy guy, and the other one's like this overweight Vietnam vet. Flat top haircut, the big ass aviators, and everything. Like there's a point where like somebody does like a rule violation and doesn't think they did, and he gets into an argument with the Vietnam guy, and he, out of his bowling bag, he takes a .45 pistol out and points it at the guy's head, and he's like, you put that point on the board and your brains are going all over the... something like that. Like he's another comedy character where he's constantly over the top.
Yeah.
And everything, like, he tries to do...
You just brought me back to that quote from Doctor Who that you just said, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, but in the interim before the podcast, we won't get into Doctor Who, but there's a episode I watched where the new one, Matt Smith, is sitting at the president's desk, in America in the 1960s, and he's like, oh, and the Secret Service have their guns trained on him, and he goes, he's like, oh, but if you shoot me, you'll never know why I'm here or how I got in here. Like, yeah, it's like being all smug, like, oh, I've got them now. And River Song like bursts out of the fucking TARDIS and is like, they're Americans, and he immediately stands up and like surrenders. The implication being like, oh, a logical person wouldn't do this, but Americans, they're gonna shoot him on sight. And it's funny because it's true. Anyway, going back to the movie. And there's a reason I'm not spending so much time describing the plot of this movie, because the plot is absolute gibberish nonsense.
Okay.
But it is a hilarious... Like, it's a hilarious movie. And there's a lot of gags in it, like... There's this very, very austere, serious scene where this billionaire is talking to him, and he's sitting by the fire in his chair, like... It's like a what would look like a very cinematic scene, and there's him in the side there, just, like, confused, like... What? Like, just not really getting what the guy is saying. And, which is kind of a theme throughout the movie. Like, usually the main character, referred to as the dude, is either drinking a White Russian or smoking pot. Yeah. For pretty much the whole movie. And the Vietnam vet guy, like, comedy character about the movie, he always comes up with these crazy over-the-top plans that always fail stupendously. So, course of the movie, Rugg gets pissed on. His friends convince him that he should go talk to this other guy, also named Lebowski. That's the billionaire guy. Because they were after him. And so he goes up and confronts the guy, and the guy, like, tells him to fuck off, basically. It's not his problem. And as he's leaving the guy's manor, the like, one random, like, dude who escorted him in is like, oh, you know, how did your meeting with Mr. Lebowski go? And he's like, oh, he told me I could take any rug in the house. And so the guy believes him, and he's walking out with a big-ass rug. And he meets the guy's wife, who offers to perform a certain act for $1,000. So it's clearly a trophy wife.
Yeah.
And
I don't have $1,000, but I have this splendid rug.
Yeah. Well, anyway, and so, like, he's getting escorted from the premises by the guy, and over his shoulder he's like, "Oh, I'll be back when I find a cash machine." Anyway, so it goes on, and then, like, things take a twist when he is called back to that guy's house.
Right.
Because they're not angry over the rug, but he's called back to that guy's house because the wife has been kidnapped. Okay. And so he's going to be used as a bagman. They'll pay him $20,000, but he has to take $1 million to do it at a drop point or something like that. And he brings his Vietnam vet friend, who...
Why would they hire him?
That's all part of the plot. This all gets tied up at the end. So... It's a crazy series of events. First of all, they fuck up the drop horribly. Then somebody steals their car, which has the money in it. Then they have to track down the car, and then they have to track down the money. And they realize that she's actually not been kidnapped by the people they think she's been kidnapped by. Also, he gets robbed by the daughter of the billionaire, who realizes the rug was a gift from her mother, and she doesn't want it gone. But she's like some crazy feminist art person who... has like 5 minutes talking about vaginas, and then this is what I mean when the plot is gibberish, but like it's just the plot is only there to string together a series of jokes in this movie. That's the best way to describe it. And it comes to the end, and you realize that she didn't get kidnapped. The billionaire kicked her out because he was sick of paying for her lazy ass, and there was somebody tailing him, but it was her parents trying to get her back home because she ran away to Los Angeles from their family farm. And what else happened? And then, like, the billionaire actually didn't want her back, so the thing that supposedly had the $1 million in it just had 2 phone books in it. And so when they fucked up the drop, they were actually fucking up a fake drop. And there's this whole thing with, like, some German metal band who are also trying to get the money because they starred in a porn with the trophy wife. And it goes off the rails so fast. They figure all of this out, confront the guy about it, and he doesn't give a crap and kicks them out because she's actually back home now, the trophy wife, and running around and stuff. And it all
lost me, but it does sound funny.
it all culminates at the end, where they're back at the bowling alley as if nothing has changed, going on doing what they're doing, and then this random cowboy at the bar narrates the ending, just going like, "The dude abides. I don't know about you, but I feel good that someone out there is taking it easy for all the rest of us. Or something like that. And it's just... it's just this over-the-top, weird parody of, like, every 90s movie trope.
Yeah.
And it made me laugh, but I looked over at Kevin at the end of the movie, and both of us had the same expression, just like, what? Like, that's the ending?
Yeah. Do you think it's going to be one of those movies where if you watch it a second time it makes more sense? Or... Because I think that's the case with, like, Pulp Fiction.
I was trying to pull a lot more meaning out of it the first time through. I think the second time I'll just enjoy the jokes.
Yeah.
Because the first time watching it... I think this would be a good movie to watch after a few drinks, or maybe if you're into that sort of thing, if you were stoned. I watched this movie stone cold sober, and as a result...
When you said, if you're into that kind of thing, I was like, what? You're into people stealing rugs? That's a bit weird.
No, if you're into smoking the dope. No, but I watched this movie completely sober, and I think that was the mistake. Because as a result, my brain was trying to pull logic and like try and like understand. In reality, I should have just laid back, chilled, and let it happen. Just let the comedy come at me and let the chaos roll.
Well, it's not like you could hand the other two beers, could you? So it makes sense.
No, I couldn't.
But yeah, holy shit! It's actually reminded me of because it's my turn to choose a movie next. Yeah, and I've been struggling to like.
Although actually, sorry, just for fun little. You said that, and I do want to just say that real quick. Both my cousins are actually drinking age in the UK.
Yeah,
but not here.
But not in America.
America.
Yeah, something that I forgot that I wanted to watch, but now you reminded me because it's kind of a comedy thing. We're going to be watching Shaun of the Dead probably next.
Oh, I do want to see. That's one that I've seen parodies of it, but I've never seen the movie itself. And I think I've told you.
You've probably seen a lot of clips and memes from it.
Yeah. Well, I've told you the parody I saw back in my 20s.
Juan of the Dead, right?
Yeah, Juan of the Dead. The one where it's a zombie apocalypse in Cuba.
Shaun of the Dead is a parody of Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, so it's a parody of a parody.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember I had
is there anything else you want to talk about?
About the Big Labowski?
Yeah.
Oh, one other just, like, little funny bit, and I'll leave it on this because I feel like this comedy bit probably is a good encapsulation of the whole movie.
Yep.
Lebowski gets a call from the guy who owns the studio that does all these porn movies.
Right.
To go out to, like, his Malibu estate, where there's big open fields and a beach, and there's a naked woman being thrown up on a trampoline, and he goes into his estate room, and the guy is interrogating him about all the money that this girl owes him. And Lebowski tells him, "Oh, I know who has the money." He's drinking his White Russian. And then the guy is like, it's like, okay. And he gets a phone call. It's like, oh, excuse me for a second. He jots something down on a notepad, takes the paper, and walks into the other room. And Lebowski does the classic, rub the pencil on the notepad to see what was written there. And the guy had literally drawn a picture of a woman with a giant penis. And that was it. And he realized that the guy was playing him to try and, like, see what happened. And so he rips it off and quickly shoves it, like, in his pocket, and then sits back down like, nothing happened. And the guy gives him another drink, and this one's laced with something to knock him out. And he wakes up later, like, running along the highway, and he gets arrested. And the sheriff is like, doesn't want him in the town. And he's going through his wallet, and he finds that picture in his wallet. And Lebowski is like, just like, man, I don't know what happened. Like, why are you being such a dick? And the police officer throws a coffee cup at his face, an empty one, and just knocks him out, and then has him thrown out of the thrown out.
Jesus, standard operating procedure.
Yeah, and it's one of those classic, like, insult quotes. This is one scene I'd seen in, like, compilation videos before, but the police officer's like, I don't like your jerk-off face. I don't like your jerk-off name.
Yeah.
And I don't like you, jerk-off.
I can't think of what that's from. That's from something else.
It's from Big Labowski.
No, I think it came from something before that. I could be wrong.
Maybe, but I'm 90% sure it's from this movie originally. Because all the clips I've seen from, like, best insults in movies or something like that, it was this clip.
Right, okay.
Anyway, that's the last scene, and I think that really encapsulates the movie. Just there's so many funny bits in it like that.
Yeah.
But go on. What were you going to talk about?
So, I did actually watch something, I wouldn't call it a movie, but Alicia did, so I was around hers, and we were watching the performance that she had done, because it had been recorded because of the whole COVID thing.
Yeah.
Of Chicago.
Okay.
Did I actually tell you about this?
Not that I can think of. I know, like, it sounds familiar, like I knew she was doing something like this, but...
Yeah.
And I've heard of Chicago, but I'm not familiar with the play or the musical.
Yeah, well, I hadn't heard of it either. And it was interesting. I think I told you what I'm about to say next. So, I was over hers, and... like some family and friends were over as well to watch it, and there were a couple of like teenagers, right? Who were friends of the family, and Chicago is not family
friendly. Yeah, family friendly.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Their performance of it was a lot more toned down than what the actual performance is. I found out later that actually the original performance is basically done in, lingerie. But
maybe I do need to look into this.
Mental note. But no, they were wearing like dresses and things. And it was a story about. It's kind of got a weird feminist vibe to it. But it's not. It's obviously set in Chicago, and a woman is cheating on her husband, and then the person she's cheating with basically like stands her up, and so she shoots him, and then the husband is like, "Nah, fuck you! I'm reporting you to the police."
Yeah.
So he does that. Well, this is
honestly that's pretty civil of him.
Like there's enough drastic topics in this that people could very easily find argument, right?
Yeah.
Like some people might say, "Oh, if you knew your wife was cheating, take very drastic measure." And there's also people who'd be like, "Well, maybe she was in the right somehow." I don't know.
Yeah, I've never... So, okay, no, I need to stop you there. That's something that I need to talk about. Like, in my life, I have been cheated on before.
Yeah.
And I'm the kind of person where I would never do that sort of thing. Like,
No.
Anytime I'm in a relationship, I am with that person, 100%.
Yep.
I can fully understand the emotional reaction of, taking things too far. I obviously don't advocate that, and it's clearly wrong, because now you're in the wrong too. But my attitude to that is, you find out, your girlfriend, your wife is cheating on you, you turn that bitch out on the street. It's like, get out of my house right now. Like, that relationship is over that moment.
Yeah.
That's my attitude towards it. Don't do anything violent, don't do anything illegal, but you cut ties. Fuck that person. Don't care what the excuse is, don't care what the reason is, get out. Sorry. So something I have a little bit of a personal background on, but go
on. The husband is like a mechanic, right? And the wife goes to this group for, I don't know, it's some kind of like group of women who have all been prosecuted or are being prosecuted. And the leader of that group, I say it's a leader. It's more like a place where you can go to ask for help, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a support group.
Yeah, kind of, but it's like a business at the same time.
Well, they have those. So like you can in the UK actually, I know about these. They have they have like these charity organizations that will help people who have been victims of crimes, or who like have criminal records, but they're also victims or something like that.
Yeah,
they exist, and they
so,
do operate as a business. They'll lend out financial aid and stuff like that. But go on.
So the cheating wife went there, and they said, "Okay, we'll get you in contact with this lawyer, and this lawyer is brilliant. He's done loads of cases like this before.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll have to pay him. I can't remember how much money it was, like $5,000, I want to say.
Which, if this was, I'm
I
assuming
can't remember
this
what
was
time this was set in.
If I'm guessing, probably like the early 1900s, first half of the century. So $5,000 would have been quite a sum, if that's the case.
And so she's not got that money because she doesn't have a job, and so she goes to the cheated on husband and is like, "Oh, please, I still love you. Please pay for it for me." And he's like, "Oh, okay then." And it's like,
take your fucking balls out of your purse. What the fuck is wrong with this guy?
Yeah, I don't like the way they treat this dude in the thing.
Like this guy got done dirty, and he's still paying for her.
Yeah. Anyway,
go on.
But he goes to the lawyer, and he's like, "Look, I've got all this money. It's not enough, but I'm going to try and get you the rest." Her father said he'll pay the rest of it, and the lawyer turns around and is like, "I've already spoken to her father, and her father said that he would rather see her in hell than alive." Basically,
I don't even know who this chick is, and I already think that.
And so the lawyer's like, "You've lied to me, but I'll still take your money, and the rest we'll get by making her a star in the press and basically selling off her shit."
Okay, yeah, I can. She becomes like a showgirl, basically.
Yeah, so he takes her, and she's like, "Okay." No, he says, "You need to look like a victim. The truth isn't what's going to make you innocent. The story is, right?"
And that, oh god, that is something. God, that's so true. That happens so often that like. Go on.
Yeah. So instead of you just shot the guy when he was crawling out the window. No, he was reaching for the gun at the same time that you were, and you got to it first, and you panicked and just shot him, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a strategy of poisoning every jury, so that they can't actually look at things objectively.
Yeah. Anyway, so she got big in the press, and then, they auctioned off her shoes and dresses and stuff, and was worth a lot more because suddenly she was a public figure.
People are collecting relics instead of just buying a pair of shoes.
Yeah. And I can't try what happened next. It was like a pretty long play. I think it was like 2 hours. And there was a lot of musical numbers in it, which I'm not even going to try. There was
fun little trivia factoid here. Do you know why almost all movies and plays are between 1 and 2 hours?
No.
Shakespeare. He determined that the things that, like, his strategy was always like, if I go longer than 2 hours, people will lose, like, they'll stop paying attention, they'll get bored. If I go shorter than 1 hour, people will feel like they got gypped. So all of his plays are designed to be between 1 and 2 hours. And that was the standard that people went on from then on. So it's, that's where it originates from. Just little piece of trivia.
Yeah.
Go on.
And then, oh god, what happens? She starts losing. So another woman murders her husband.
Yeah.
Because he was sleeping around, and suddenly the spotlight's on her. And then to take the spotlight back.
Hold on, was he sleeping around after He kicked her out?
He is a completely new character.
Oh, okay.
The guy that gets shot is... Like, the guy that gets shot and the new girl who was the wife, are two new characters.
So it's the opposite situation of the first two characters, where the guy was sleeping around and the wife wasn't.
Except it's still the woman that shot the person.
Yeah.
So suddenly she comes into the spotlight, and she is not at all playing the game. She's just like, fuck that guy, I would do it again, kind of thing, even in front of the press. So she's taking all the attention. And this original woman is like, oh, shit, I need all that attention, because my court date's coming up. And so she faints, and she's like, oh, I must be pregnant now with someone else's child. Like, with the person that she shot's child.
Yeah.
And so the husband who got cheated on is like, what the fuck, you have another man's child now?
And after like, this guy, like, fronted some money for her legal defense, too.
She's like, oh, but, you know, I still really love you and stuff like that. And so he's like, oh, yeah, I still love you too, actually. So I'm going to stand on the stand and say, you know, it doesn't matter, we still love each other, and she's a really great girl, kind of thing.
I wish there was a camera for this segment, because you'd see the fucking look on my face right now.
Also, I am probably butchering the story, I apologize, but I'm trying to get the main points.
Yeah.
And then the like, before the trials are already finished, basically. Well, like, as soon as the hammer goes down, right, all of the journalists and stuff just fuck off. Because she's proven innocent.
Yeah.
Not important anymore. They all disappear. And she's like, oh shit, I need that fix of attention still. And so she gets really, like, angry.
And so she starts an OnlyFans.
and so she's with her husband afterwards.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is great, you know, you've been acquitted, we can go and be happy again. And she's like, this isn't fucking great, I hate this. And he's like, but we can have that child now. And she's like, the child's not real, you idiot. I'm like, oh, I feel so bad for this poor cunt. And he just gets depressed and just walks off stage, and I don't think you see him again. Go on.
I have not seen this play, but I can tell there's a few musicals that have a message that, like, they make the people that in my mind are the villains out to be the heroes, and this woman sounds like that.
I think she definitely does come across as a villain. Like, she is manipulating people all the time. She's getting pissy at the people that are actually helping her.
And then she fucking, like, she's like, oh, I'm free, but, oh, now that I'm free, I'm not getting all this attention.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that could have been why she was, like, cheating on her husband in the first place, because she wanted the attention.
Yeah.
But, yeah, there's some really good, just to finish up the performance, she then goes with another character I haven't mentioned at all, because she's not super key. She goes with basically the equivalent of her, but the last iteration.
Yeah.
So she stole the limelight from this last girl.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically go on the road as like a dancing duo. Because I think they were both always dancers, or I don't know. Anyway. So yes, they end up performing as like the two murderous wives kind of thing, their act. And yeah, that's kind of how it goes. But there is one really, like, so the part that Alicia played,
yeah,
I genuinely think she did really, really fucking well. There were, I don't want to critique people that didn't do great, because it's almost like,
out of curiosity, what part did she play?
So she played the head of the women's guild. That's the nerdiest fucking way I could have put that, but that's the way that makes sense to me.
I'm picturing it like a Morrowind faction.
So she actually appears throughout the story because she's like the person that all the women go to whenever they've done something wrong.
It's like the godmother. It's like the godfather,
exactly.
She's just sitting there. So you've come to me with a problem.
Well, like the very first scene you see her in as that role, she's literally just sitting at a desk in the middle, legs crossed, with like a black suit on, and like someone is coming in to ask her for help. And God, it's great.
I'm sorry. I'm remembering the opening scene in The Godfather. Just the you owe me nothing, but sometime, and it may never come, I will come to you and ask for a favor.
You come to me on the night of my daughter's wedding.
Oh my God! Sorry, but go on.
But yes, so it's also really weird because Alicia, as you know, is like the most bounciest, happiest person around, and this character is like a kind of a shady, business dealing Chicago person. By the way, she had to put on the Chicago accent for the whole thing as well.
I'd be curious to hear her American accent, but go on. Yeah.
Yeah. She played the character she played was called Big Mama.
Oh my God! It really is a Godfather kind of character.
Yeah. Yeah. The one other person I thought did an amazing job was the lawyer. Mm-hmm. The person who played the lawyer. Now, Alicia will say I'm biased because he's pretty. I'm just saying. But yeah, he was doing one of the songs, and he was like doing magic tricks while singing the song whilst acting. So he's like literally he's walking down steps, juggling while singing.
Yeah, that's some crazy.
He gets to the bottom. He does like a whole bunch of other magic tricks. He has like he's handed a wallet which like when he opens it up catches fire, and when he closes it again it cuts out. And apparently they had like a bucket of sand ready in case the whole thing just fucking exploded.
Oh my God, that is when you know. When you have to take contingencies for things getting lit on fire, that's when you know you have a good play.
Yeah. And God, no, it was a really good performance all around.
Oh my God. It honestly, it sounds interesting, but yeah, no, both of those women sound like villains. Although, the one that shot her husband over, like, him cheating all the time and stuff like that, that one I can have a little bit more sympathy with.
Yeah, she was obviously, like, a pretty horrible person because she was just constantly screaming at people. But at the same time...
There's,
I just feel bad for the mechanic, dude.
I feel bad for the first husband. Like, anyway. So, speaking of plays, and this is the last thing, because we are coming up on time for the segment, and we're going to take a lot of time talking about the second half of Morningstar. I think what I might actually do, which I've never done before, is record an intro after we finish the podcast, because I realized at the beginning of this, I didn't do my normal, this podcast, we're talking about this in segment 1, this in segment 2, this in segment 3. Oh my God,
did you not?
No, I didn't.
No, you don't normally do that.
Well, I have been. I started doing it. For the last 3 podcasts, that's what I've been doing.
Anyway.
I see your skeptical look, but I have been. Go back and listen to them. Just on the subject of plays, there's one that... So back in high school, my first girlfriend, like, she was big into, like, theater and stuff like that. And one of the plays that her and her friends were obsessed with was Rent.
Yes, you're talking about, this is the French one where you fucking hated the main character and everyone else was like...
Is it French?
Didn't you say it was French?
I don't think it's French. I think it's set in the US. Anyway, the idea is some fucking... Because there's AIDS in it, so it has to be from the US. What? No, it's a major plot point. People have AIDS!
Gay people don't bang?
what I'm saying is the plot of the movie is...
Wait, did I say gay people?
You did say gay people.
I meant French people. I'm
no,
sorry.
No, it's synonyms. You get them mixed up. It's fine.
I'm very sorry to any French people out there. Go on.
I'm not. So the movie is about a bunch of layabout, lazy fucko people who have a loft apartment that they do artist things in. I guess they're rehearsing a play, or they're making music, or they're doing something. I've rage blocked a lot of this play out of my mind. And one of their friends decides to get out and make a life for himself. And so he, gets an education, gets a nice job, gets a nice suit, starts making money, and he ends up working for the real estate company that owns the building they're in. And they don't want to pay rent because they're lazy hippies. And so he, their old friend, has the job of coming in and telling them, you gotta pay the rent, otherwise you're getting kicked out. And the whole musical is about them being lazy fuckheads and not paying the rent, and somehow they're the heroes for that, and everyone also has AIDS, including the guy who got the job.
Oh.
Because he used to be with
Has
them,
he been
and
sleeping with the enemy.
Well, he caught AIDS from them or something. Well, HIV.
Right.
AIDS is the condition. This is something people get mixed up all the time. HIV is the virus. AIDS is the condition that develops from having the virus for a prolapsed period of time, or for a prolonged period of time, not prolapsed.
Okay. That's a whole other ball.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So that was, I don't know. It's just, oh god, I hated that musical so much.
Yeah.
But it was another example of the people who, in my eyes, were the villains, are portrayed as the heroes. And I feel like that's something that happens in a lot of musicals. Not all of them. Like, I'm not just against musicals in general. Like, Les Miserables, fucking love that one. I know it's Les Miserables, but I refuse to speak in French or gay.
That's why I didn't say anything, because we've had this discussion like 20 times.
And I really love Sweeney Todd. Another good one.
Also true. Yeah, I think you don't like when people have the ability to do better for themselves and then they don't.
Yeah. Well, and it's my I don't make any, like, we don't talk about politics really on this at all. But I mean, it shouldn't be well, not really. It shouldn't be a mystery though that, like, my politics, I'm libertarian. Like, I think that people should be free to do what they want, and that you should, if you want something, go out and earn it. Do, like, work hard, get it.
I feel like politics are a lot like sexual identity.
Are they? Wait, how do you put it? Okay, hold on, I want to hear this.
Well, it's like, there are people who are like, I'm definitely in this group, or I'm definitely in this group.
Oh, so you're saying, like, people who are independent are, like, bisexual?
What?
Well, I'm sorry, I was guessing the end point of your argument. Go on.
Well, no, because I was like, okay, so I don't really, personally, I was going to say, identify as any political standing. Like,
yeah,
I believe in what I believe in. I'm not going to, like, align myself to any particular political party.
Well, and that is kind of how I've always been. I think when I say libertarian, that's why I say I'm not a libertarian, but my politics are closest to libertarian.
Right.
Because, like, I don't know, growing up, like, the two big parties in the U.S. are obviously, Democrat and Republican. My parents have never been with either. Like, growing up, they were both independent. They'd vote for the person they liked the best. It didn't matter what party they were in. And I've done the same thing my whole life. It's like, I don't care, like, what party they're in. I care what they're saying.
That's what I'm getting from this, Kaiju, is you're not gay, but it's where you're closest to.
Fuck off. I'm sorry, did you mean gay or did you mean French?
This is like the old, there are no Britons in England.
There are no Britons in... So, that joke is worth explaining. One night, and this was back in the early days.
It's even a joke. It was just a slip of the tongue.
It was in early days of the YouTube channel when we were mostly doing PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds PUBG videos, and Blue, you, me, and I think it was Hart at the time. The girl that played with us for a while and then kind of fucked off. So the three of us had been drinking and we were playing PUBG, and I was recording it, and Blue goes like, there's no Britons in England. And he didn't believe me the next day that he had said that, and I showed him back the clip. And
I did believe it, because I remember, like, as I was doing it, I was like, oh, I fucked up.
That night you did, but the next morning you didn't believe me, and I had to show you the clip back. You were vehemently denying it.
There was... What were we talking about? There was... It was based on a line that would make sense.
I think, like... No, there's a reason. We were talking about... I'm surprised I still remember this conversation. We were talking about, like, national, like, animals and stuff like that, and you were talking about how the British, they have lion motifs everywhere, and you were trying to say there are no lions in England.
Oh, okay. I thought it was going to be, like... You were saying... Someone was saying that Wales is in England as opposed to Wales is in Britain.
No. We were talking about.
And I was saying there are no Welsh in England.
Yeah, no. You were trying to say there were no lions in England because you've got the lion on the motif of the royal family. Yeah, technically, but they're not native there.
Scotland's got a unicorn. I mean,
to be fair, it's Scotland. They were probably drunk.
I can't think of a more. Scottish animal though than a unicorn.
I don't want to cut this off, but we were at time before we started talking about this, and now we're just telling stories and going off.
Like Afghanistan having a penguin on their flag.
I like it. Throwback to segment 1. Oh my god.
Oh shit. Anyway.
For an episode that started so serious, this got goofy fast. Alright. I'm calling it there. This is going to be the end of segment 2 of the TMCJ podcast. Thank you all for listening, and you will hear us again momentarily for segment 3. Welcome back to the TMCJ podcast. We are on segment 3, our wild card segment, and we are back after a while to finish up the long going book review of the Red Rising trilogy. We've done 6 segments on this now, and we took a break on this one because we wanted to do that little choose your own adventure tangent.
Ever since we started doing the book review for this series, all of our normal schedule's gone out the window.
Oh yeah, we haven't done a quiz segment in months.
Yeah.
We do need to get back to that, by the way.
Maybe. I think we could do that next week. Planning it now. I think it's... Am I doing a quiz for you, or are you doing a quiz for me?
The next turn is you doing a quiz for me.
Okay, what's the theme going to be?
Well, I don't know. We could talk about...
Do you want me to just random pull some shit for it? Because I come up with some wacky shit.
I mean, we're coming up on September. Holiday in September is Labor Day. You could do a quiz about communism.
That sounds boring as fuck. I'm going to come up with something mad.
That sounds... Okay, so for me it sounds interesting, but I'm a nerd about that sort of shit. Anyway.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be, how is your knowledge of dinosaur porn?
No.
20 questions, here comes.
No more tacos. All right. This is going to be a bit... These are always long ones, so I don't want to waste too much time.
Yes.
So we left off last time after we had gotten to the ice fields. Ragnar had Ragnar died at this point? I think... So, I'll just recap what happened. The Reaper's back. He does his big intros on the Phobos, the moon of Mars. And he takes a shuttle with Mustang and Ragnar and the gray chick who rescued him from being stuck in the Jackal's fortress. They get shot down. Ragnar does this badass move, firing a rocket launcher out the back of the shuttle, takes down the other shuttle. Blue is pantomiming this whole thing, it's really hard for me to keep a straight face.
Such a gay face.
Fuck off. A French face? They land on they crash, and after a while they manage to all regroup, get everyone together. Mustang's being attacked by a sea monster, but they rescue her. They eat a fuckload of pasta.
What?
They eat a lot of pasta. Because the only thing in their ration... Pasta. Pasta? Why do you say pasta?
I'm not saying pasta! This isn't a fucking churchgoer that I'm eating. Pasta.
Pasta.
Like, imagine like you're saying hasta, like hasta la vista, but it's pasta.
Pasta. There's too much Boston in my accent to say that without going pasta.
Pasta. Anyway, yeah, go on.
Pasta. So they eat a whole fuckload of that because that's the only thing they could recover from the rations. They warm up, and then they go off to try and figure out what happened to the rest of the crew. Cannibals, the Golds got eaten, and they find Aja and Cassius being pursued by these cannibals and fighting them off. Grey Chick hides out with a sniper rifle, Mustang's got a bow, and Ragnar and Darrow have razors. They go off after them. The cannibals get chased off, but they end up in a very intense duel with Cassius and Aja. Ragnar does his best, but he gets cut up. Aja kills him. Cassius gets shot in the throat. Aja goes over a cliff, and Ragnar is dying. And right where Ragnar is dying, they see griffins circling up above. And griffins, again, having been created by the carvers, the people who make these weird chimera creatures. And again, it's all supposed to contribute to the mythology they use to keep the Obsidians in servitude.
So Hagrid flies down. Sorry.
You're a wizard, Harry. It turns out to be Ragnar's sister, who they describe as equally, like, burly as him. So, like, basically 2 8-foot-tall giant. Not as burly, but
shorter.
They're still gigantic compared to the Golds.
Yeah.
She gives him an axe so he can die like a warrior. He throws the axe down and grabs Snow in her hand and says, "No, live for more," and then he dies. And so at this point, they're escorted back to the place, the citadel.
The village of the Obsidians.
Yeah. And Cash is just taken off in another direction, still with a fucking arrow in his throat. I mean...
Alive.
Yeah, he's alive. Like, I think later in the book they established that it missed his jugular by, like, that much. Like, tiny amount. And their Mustang and Darrow are taken to see the Ragnar's mother, who they find, like, kind of with her son in her laps, like, grieving, like, with his blood on her hands, like, you know, grieving, essentially.
Yeah. Physically, not metaphorically.
Yeah. And she also is described as being gigantic. And I think they also established at this point that the Obsidians have a matriarchal society. So, like, the women are the head of everything. And...
Yeah. And also it's very, like, Stone Age. And they believe in gods.
They do. But through this conversation where Darrow tries to convince his mother, like Ragnar's mother, to side with him and the gods aren't real and that they're just men like anything else, he realizes very quickly that just like the Gammas back in his mine, they're like the favored lower class. So like his mother knows. She knows that they're not gods.
She's in on the jig, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And she has a very good line which kind of establishes why she is like going along with this. And she says something along the lines of like, what would you feel more, or what would you fear more, a god or a man with the power of a god?
Yeah.
And that's when he realizes, oh shit, she knows, and she's just siding with them because she knows if she crosses them, her people are getting nuked.
Yeah.
What are you doing on your desk, by the way?
Sorry?
What are you doing on your desk, by the way?
Sorry, I forgot all that came through.
I can cut the sound out in post, but it's just yeah. What were you saying?
Yeah, she's a bit. She's very
pragmatic.
I was going to use a stronger word.
Okay, what were you going to say?
Yeah, you really don't like this woman, and she is actively putting her own family in the line of fire in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
To uphold her way of life, really. That's kind of how I saw it, anyway.
I took a more sympathetic line towards her. Like, I saw it as, like, she knows that she can't beat the Golds, right? She knows that they're flying above her, and if she rebels or if she does anything, like, to cross them, they're gonna, rain down fire from space.
Yeah.
And so she's just doing her best to, like, she's being very pragmatic. She's keeping her family safe by upholding the status quo.
And she tries to get Darrow and the whole lot, like, killed.
Yeah. She ends up, like, binding and gagging them and sends them off with her daughter to go up to Asgard, which is the floating island where the Golds are monitoring the Obsidians and making sure that, things are going right there.
Just like Mount Olympus from the first book.
Exactly. Where they were at the Academy, or the Institute. Anyway, so they get up there, and Darrow realizes through a few subtle hints that, like, oh, I might be able to turn the daughter. Sephi, I think her name is?
Yeah, I think so.
It starts with an S, but I think her name is Sephi. Again, this is the issue with doing this review. Like, it's been a month since I finished the book. So
I think that was the name, that was like the pet name that
Ragnar gave her. Yeah, I think she had a longer name. But anyway, so he realizes through a few subtle hints that he could probably convince her. And so he manages to get a private word with her, and, I can't remember exactly what he says, but he makes an argument and, references Ragnar's last words and talks to her about, like, she still thinks that this could be heresy and she could be damned for doing this.
Yeah.
But she eventually kind of agrees to go along with his plan and gives...
In the same way that, like, the first time that Ragnar held a razor, he was terrified of it.
Right, because it was heresy. It was death on the ice by starvation if you touched one of the weapons of the gods.
Yeah.
And so he does manage to convince her, and so they get put into an audience chamber with the two people who are overseeing... I think one of them is playing the part of Loki, and one of them is playing the part of Freya, maybe.
Yeah. They could have made up their own gods, but, why...
Yeah, why
don't fix what ain't broke.
Yeah, exactly. Go with the Norse ones. Anyway,
and the same motherfucker from the Institute.
Well, that's what I'm getting to. So he jumps up and as proof to Sephi, like, she had slipped him a razor and, like, got his restraints off, or slipped him a weapon of some kind. And so he jumps up with Mustang, and the two of them, like, take out the two Golds there, and the one that they subdue turns out to be exactly the same motherfucker that was playing the head of House Mercury in the Institute.
God, I'm surprised you remember what house he was from.
I have a good mind for random details. There's a reason I remember all this, like, random trivia that I can talk about on the podcast.
Yeah.
I'm terrible, though, with names and specifics. Like, when you start talking about, like, general conversations or people's names, it just goes out of my mind. But very specific, like, bits of detail, I gotcha. So they manage to take that out. Sephi executes the two Golds that are there. Ragnar arms them. They go back, lead a coup amongst the Obsidians. Sephi rallies all the other
Did you just say Ragnar arms them?
Oh, sorry, Sephi. Oh, sorry, Darrow. Darrow arms them. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of Obsidians, and I said...
Yeah.
Anyway, Darrow arms them, and then they go back. They take over the gold thing. The Obsidian thing. Sephi kills her mother, and then takes over as the leader.
Pretty gruesomely, if I recall.
Yeah, no, they do a lot to establish that the Obsidians are a very brutal tribal people.
Yeah. I think she does give her a last chance, maybe?
She does, and then the mother, like, is basically...
Like, fuck you.
Yeah, no, like, fuck you, you're making a huge mistake, this is awful, and then Sephi takes her out.
Yeah.
And then she rallies the people to them, and then they head back, and they find out that Severo has taken over, like, a good chunk of the fleet, like, he's stolen some ships. they bring all the Obsidians back and try to integrate them with the rest of the hidden city that they're all in. They still have Cassius as a prisoner. He didn't die. They managed to get the arrow out of his neck and patch him up. And Darrow actually has a few heart-to-hearts with him, which is interesting because they've
been through a lot.
They've been through it's one of those weird bromances because Cassius hates him for killing several of his brothers, but
pretty much only hates him for killing the one. Let's face it.
Yeah, just the baby of the family.
Yeah, I always thought after the point where Cassius saw him a broken man, that broke Cassius' own spirit, and he was like, "You're still a piece of shit, but the side that I'm on is also a massive piece of shit."
And so they actually start to bond over the fact that both their sides are like they've both done some really shitty things, and neither of them have the high ground.
Yeah.
But that fully manifests later. For the time being, they're back at the city, kind of trying to regroup and figure out what exactly they're going to do. And after a while of talking, negotiating, figuring stuff out, they realize what they need to do is they need to get the Moon Lords on side. Like the people who are, commanding the moons of Jupiter and Saturn.
Moonlords.com.
Just thinking of Sailor Moon. So they head out there to try and do that, essentially. And cut forward, Darrow is meeting with one of the biggest lords on one of the moons of Saturn. And they make a point of how low the gravity is and everything, and everyone's really
Is this
floating.
in the garden?
Yeah, the garden, right.
Yeah.
And it's, Darrow realizes at the door he sees extra boots there, that Roke, the commander of the Sovereign's fleet. Yeah, Rokal Fabii, which is a appropriately posh and soft name for this character.
He's not stupid, though.
He isn't, no. They make a point of that. He's very bookish and very...
He's the best commander in the fleet.
Yeah, he's very bookish and very proper, but he's not like a man's man.
No.
He's an intellectual.
You can see him leading a warship, like that old man leading a warship, capturing it, but not being the one on the front line firing the guns.
If you remember when we watched Way of the Samurai, The Last Samurai, there was that tiny old commander at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And the way the main character in that movie describes him is a small man who nonetheless commands enormous respect. And
that being said, I think I have less respect for Rogue because he did do that coup at the party, backstab motherfucker.
Yeah, I could go on for hours about the psychological reasons and the social reasons that humans are so adverse to betrayal.
Yeah, I think, particularly in the last book, the emotions really show where Cassius and Roke both seem like broken people.
Because
both of them are.
Their society, their way of life has caused them to betray an almost familial bond, a brotherhood.
Yeah.
And you can still see that in Roke in this book. So what happens is the Moon Lord reveals, when they go into the house, that Roke has also approached him at the same time, and they're there under a banner of peace, so no one has weapons, and it's Roke, and it's Darrow, and it's Mustang, and it's the Lord, and they're kind of at. Basically, they're both trying to get the loyalty of this guy.
Yeah.
Now,
they talk about a very important point in history.
There's something that I glossed over here, and I'm going to come back to it now. While they were after they got the Obsidians and they went back to the city, they find out, and it's revealed through some of their scouts and some of their spying, that there's a cache of something crazy power, 500 megaton nuclear warheads.
Yeah.
And all of the houses are allowed to have a certain amount of 50 megaton nuclear warheads. Things that will, can be used in space combat, but won't be a threat to a planet.
Is that Io that got glassed?
No, I don't think it's. It was one of the moons that got completely nuked to oblivion because he.
Yeah, they're remember. I can't remember what the moon. I can't remember.
Yeah, neither can I. I don't think it was Io, but it was one of the moons of Jupiter, I believe, that got completely fucked over.
In the past. By the Empire.
Yeah. And it was basically, they were rebelling, and the Sovereign sent out a fleet and just completely glassed the planet with nukes.
Yeah.
And so...
Probably a reference to kind of America and Japan a little bit.
I mean, there's a bit of that, yeah. But we didn't glass Japan, we hit 2 cities.
True.
2 cities with relatively weak warheads. Like, the kind of nukes that they have now, oof. You could wipe out, like, an entire, like, state. Don't want to get back on that. So,
not even Scotland's unicorns could stop those boys.
they poke them in orbit with the horn. Oh my god, I completely lost my place. So what they discovered in the city after they got back from the Obsidians, and there's a reason I didn't talk about it at the time. I was waiting until this scene to bring it up. They're scouts, they're red scouts that are like infiltrating and stuff. They find that there is a cache in the asteroid belt, right in between the inner planets and the outer planets, that is it was packed with like 500 megaton nuclear planet killers is what they call it.
Yeah, I think that's what they call it. Planet busters or killers, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. And it has been cleaned out. Now, their intelligence tells them that it was the Jackal that took them. But but they use this as a negotiating piece. Like, Roke is starting to sway the Moon Lords with like promises of, loyalty and more independence.
Their
and
own
all
land
this.
back.
Yeah. And then Darrow is like, okay, Roke's winning. I got to play my trump card. And he pulls out here's some footage, and just lets it happen.
Yeah.
Because Roke has already promised them that, like, the Sovereign won't do anything like that planet they glassed before again. And now they see that there's this giant cache of weapons in the asteroid belt on the way out to their planets.
Yeah, to give some context, there are still nukes allowed in the universe.
But they limit them to 50 megatons, and they limit them to a certain quantity.
There's like a Geneva Convention-esque thing where you cannot have a certain tonnage. Yeah. And I don't think Rogue even knew about the cache, did he?
He didn't. And that's what fucked him. Is like he made that swear that, like, this will never happen again. The Sovereign, endorses this. And then when Darrow was revealed that, it made him look like a massive hypocrite.
Yeah.
And that's what finally sways them, and they do end up siding with Darrow.
Unhappily, but yes.
Unhappily, but yes. Yeah. Then this all culminates in a massive space battle between Roke and Darrow's fleet. So the Moon Lords and Roke.
They don't just shoot him while he's at the meeting.
Oh, no.
They're actually honorable.
They are honorable. They're under a banner of peace, and they respect that. So that is something that I actually, of all the horrible bits of this society that's depicted in these books, there's part of me that has always had a lot of respect for societies that value honor to that degree. Like,
yes and no.
I mean,
the actual society is the ones that were bringing the nukes around, and not the people that were hosting the meeting there.
That's true. What I mean is the social decorum. Like, there's an appeal to me in like in a person-to-person setting. There's a certain degree of respect, a certain degree of honor between people.
Yeah,
like
a lot like medieval chivalry, where there is this class system, but they're still like duels and things.
But it's all very regimented.
Yeah,
and steeped in this whole mythos. Anyway, I don't want to get on to that topic because again, this is probably something we could talk about quite a bit. So they end up going to battle with Roke, and Darrow pulls some crazy maneuver because he knows that Roke is already in his head, and so he's like, he has to think of a way to get at him that, like, he would never think of.
Yeah.
And so he uses the Reds. and their claw
Also,
drills.
Roke, I think his fleet way outmatches Darrow's.
Oh, yeah. I think Roke has more ships, better quality ships, better armed. And so Darrow uses the old claw drills they used to burrow in the mines.
The coolest fucking way possible.
Yeah, they fucking launch out of a moon or something like that through space and drill into the ship that Roke is captaining. And then make the...
How fucking bad would that be if you missed the ship?
Well, that was the thing. It was so risky because if they missed, they're just flying off into space. Or if they fucked up, the drill explodes and they splatter against the ship.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they go through and they manage to, get all the way to a place where they can hack comms. And there's a predetermined message to all the low colors on the ship to go like, hey, I'm the Reaper and I'm here and we're liberating you. Rise up, and all that stuff. And they're at this door, and they don't have enough time to cut through. There's people coming in. They're going to get slaughtered. And then the door just opens to the bridge. And behind the door is this one Pink, who was, like, kind of the paramour of Roke. And she's got, like, this firm, determined look on her face. Like, I'm not going to be kept by this fucker anymore.
I think handmaiden is probably a better term than,
Than paramour?
Maybe. I don't think Roke was sleeping with her.
I do think she was, actually. I think that was heavily implied that, the two of them were banging.
Fair enough.
I mean, you're right, they do leave it up to interpretation. It's possible they were, it's possible they weren't.
I thought she just hit the button because she was like, she could see that the ship was going south and the Reaper was outside the door and she would rather be on the Reaper's side.
Oh, I took it completely different. I thought it was like a lover's quarrel where she was like, no, I'm not having any more of this fucker. But either way, she opens the door and they go in quietly, close the door, and she steps off to the side. They quickly take out the bridge crew defenses, and then it's just Roke and Darrow.
They're making every effort not to kill any...
Yeah, anyone that isn't resisting. Yeah. And Roke and Darrow have... Sorry, go on.
In fact, I think the message that they send out actually turns a lot of Roke's ships on his own fleet.
It does, yeah. There are a few, successful...
Like ships that Darrow's not even on.
Yeah, exactly. It was a pre-recorded message that goes out to the ships, and if they got comms, they were supposed to broadcast to the ship, and the other low colors would hopefully rise up, and it does work on a few ships. Anyway, so Darrow confronts Roke, who is A, shocked that he's there, but B, betrayed that the Pink had opened the door, because there's a moment between the two of them where Darrow says, like, and then he sees a worse pain on his face, and that he calls it the pain of betrayal. So Darrow once again makes an entreaty to Roke, like, come on, like, just surrender, just don't let anything happen, like, you don't have to die here, like, we can be brothers again. And Roke decides instead, no, he's gonna die with his honor, because again, that he's backed into a corner and decides to take an honorable suicide rather than be captured or switch sides or whatever.
Yeah, on one side you can see Roke being like an honorable dude that kind of just stuck with his guns throughout. On the other side, you could probably imagine him wearing a tall white hood.
So, I actually liken Roke a lot to Javert from Les Miserables.
Yeah.
Like, he's somebody who sees the world purely in black and white. And when somebody shows him a shade of gray, it shatters his world to an extent that he can't cover. Except
Javier kind of comes round.
No, he kills himself.
Yeah, but he's like, okay.
But that's what I'm saying.
I understand that what I've been doing has been not right. Not wrong, but not right.
That's my point, is that's what happens to Roke. Roke, like, comes to he sees the flaws in his worldview, and then it breaks him and he kills himself.
I don't think he does see the flaws. I think he's like, fuck it, GG,
I'm out.
WP.
GG, no re?
Yeah. And yeah, John, finish that.
Okay, I mean that could be the way it goes. But anyway, so Roke kills himself, and then they get a whole bunch of, like, oh, the fleet's going towards the shipyards of our planet for the Moon Lords and everything like that. And this is where Darrow makes a lot of, how do I put this, rough decisions. Like,
right. Unnecessary gambles,
but he also does some very dirty things in the interest of winning his war. And this is one of them. So his allies, the Moon Lords, like, he puts on his helmet to answer their call, like, wipes some of Roke's blood on his face so it looks like he's going through the halls. It's like, oh, it's still taking time, we can't get through, and so on and so on. And they're like, oh, stop him before he hits the shipyards. And then he's like, I'm going to try, I'll do the best I can. And he cuts the communication and then commands the Blues on the ship to kill the shipyards.
To fire a nuke at the shipyards.
Yeah. So the idea is that, the Moon Lords have independence, but they won't be a threat to the inner planets now for like 100 years.
It neuters them hard.
Yeah. And so basically he fucks over, like, after he knows he's won, he fucks over his allies just so that he can, have a little bit of breathing room. Yeah. And it's understandable. Tactically, it was a brilliant maneuver.
It was.
But morally, it's pretty fucked up.
Also, everyone in that room, including... There was a lot of golds in that room that just gave up when Rogue died.
Yeah.
Like, enemy golds are in the room.
Yeah. It's also the same thing that happens with... you used to see this a lot in medieval society. The knights would always be like, they'd fight. When they lose, they surrender, and they expect honorable treatment.
Yeah. No, they should have all been killed. I'm sorry. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're part of bigger families which had a lot of money, so the Rising needed that money. And that's, I think, why they were left alive.
Yeah.
But they could have stood with Rogue, and none of them did. Like, they make a point of that.
That I think is very... That is a good point. Is that Rogue was clearly the best man in the room. And I think that's something that should be said. For all the shitty things that he did,
racist cunt.
He lived and died by his principles.
Yeah.
And there is something respectable about that. Maybe not...
He wasn't a coward.
Not good, but respectable. And he wasn't a coward. That's clear.
He's a lot like the Jackal in many ways. Like, he will cut off his hand to get away. But he will, he has such strong beliefs that he is right that he will do that.
But whereas Roke's was based on his upbringing and his sense of duty and honor, the Jackal's were based on the fact that he's a sociopath and has no emotions. I think they act in similar ways, but the core of who they are is different. Sorry, we're getting caught up in the philosophy a little bit here. So moving on, they take over the fleet. The Moon Lords are bitter, but they've won the battle.
Yeah, they didn't know any better.
Well, the head guy kind of picks up on it, and there's this tense scene between him and Darrow, where they both realize that they've sort of screwed each other a little bit, but also sort of got what they want. It reminds me of an old adage: a good negotiation, like, you've had a good negotiation when neither side is happy. It's because everyone gets a little bit of what they want, but not really everything they wanted.
Yeah.
And that's what happens at the end of this. So they kind of regroup, figure things out, and they're heading back to the inner planets, right? To go back to Mars. And this is where they're trying to, like, sort some stuff out. They're
not heading to Luna.
That's the thing. At this point, you still think they're heading to Mars. That's a spoiler. It comes later. So
sorry.
I mean, there's no point in me not spoiling because I'm giving the whole plot. But they are secretly going to Luna, but they say they're going to Mars. The idea is to trick the Jackal, right? Unfortunately, on the trip there, the Jackal sends like a transmission. It gets intercepted by the whole fleet of him executing Darrow's uncle, who's like beloved by the Low Colors. and it sparks a rebellion on the ships to the point where Sephi is lynching Golds in like the cargo bay.
Yeah.
Including Cassius. And Severo like dismantles this in such a good way. Oh my god. Like, I love this scene, and I need to describe it in its completion.
I can remember this quite clearly.
It's such a good scene. So Severo, he jumps up on stage and he dons like the the mask of Ares. And he's like, oh, he's done this and he's done this and he's a murderer. Clearly, he deserves this. What do we do with murderers? And everyone's like, yeah, we kill him. And then he's like, and then he goes like, and I am Severo, and I have and I am Ares, and I have murdered this person and this person and this person. And what do we do with murderers? And he ties a noose around his own neck and jumps off the platform.
Yeah.
And everyone just like panics, like, oh shit, and all the low cutters are trying to cut him down, but none of them can reach him and stuff like that. And in that one moment, he kind of deflates the whole thing. Like, it's a riotous mob, and with that one act, he kind of just takes away the impetus to go out and lynch all these Golds.
And he hangs there for quite a while.
He does. Like, they actually describe it later when they have to take him, and Cassius survives too. They have to take the both of them to the infirmary, and they're like, he can barely talk because it's crushed his larynx a little bit, and they have to do some surgery to fix everything. But it's such a good scene when you actually hear the whole thing. Because I'm not going to try to repeat any of the things he said because I'm not going to do him justice. But it's such a powerful scene, and it really touches on like mob mentality and how to diffuse it perfectly. Like, you get the mob to cheer for you, and then you show them their hypocrisy in complete and brutal fashion.
Yeah.
Anything you want to say about that scene? Because you were saying you'd like just...
No, I think it was really good. There was a lot of the main characters for Gold, and I think like a few of the Golds do get executed. Yeah.
I think by the time they get there, 3 of them have already been hung, and Cassius is about to be hung.
And Sephi is pissed.
Oh yeah, Sephi is... And this is where Darrow starts to realize, okay, this was the problem with uplifting an entire brutal tribal society all at once.
Gave him too much power too quickly.
Yeah. Kind of like the Taliban. Sorry. So that scene ends, and this is where the bromance between Darrow and Cassius picks up, what we were alluding to earlier. Darrow...
they share a scotch, don't they?
They do, yeah. So Darrow and Cassius... Darrow takes over Roke's suite. Opulently decorated.
Oh, yeah.
Really nice booze. And he's looking over the last videos and stuff that Cassius was watching, and it was of their old school days. Back in the Institute. Because all of that was recorded. That when they were camping out by the fire, the girl Quinn that got executed, that Cassius had the hots for. That Roke had the hots for, and Cassius actually. I think they both went after Quinn. I know we talked about this. Some of the earlier characters are kind of forgettable.
Cassius.
But after a while of watching the videos, Darrow summons Cassius to the quarters. Like, has him brought up. Did you have something to say before I get to this scene?
Someone's hanging around outside Darrow's door, but I thought it was Ragnar. Ragnar. But he's dead, so it couldn't have been him.
There is someone, you're right.
It was an obsidian, I'm pretty sure.
It might have been Sephi.
No, it wasn't Sephi. Sephi didn't give a shit.
No, you're actually... I think you're thinking of Book 2, because that does happen in Book 2,
so,
where they're at a ship and Ragnar won't leave his door. Like, Ragnar literally... He's like, Ragnar, go to bed. I'm safe. Like, that did happen in Book 2. I think that's what you're thinking of.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So, after a while of... Like, he has a drink, and he's like, oh, it's really nice stuff. And he's like, oh, of course, Roke always had the best. Like, he had the best tastes. And then, as he's watching these videos, he's thinking... He has a fit of nostalgia, and he has Cassius brought up from the brig. And has him uncuffed, and basically the two of them just sit there watching old videos and drinking scotch and just reminiscing. And they have this moment where they're not friends again, but in that moment of, like, they still have deep enmity for each other. But they kind of feel a little bit more of that brotherhood they shared back at the Institute.
Yeah.
It's
Darrow doesn't have much for Cassius, but Cassius does for Darrow.
I think it goes both ways, because Darrow multiple times talks about how, like, Cassius is something that weighs on his mind quite a bit in the third book, thinking about, like, how he regrets how their relationship devolved, because they were brothers at one point. And yeah,
I don't think Darrow was ever super mad at Cassius. I mean,
he wasn't. No. I think that most of the anger is on Cassius's side.
Yeah.
But so they share a few drinks and, you know, go off, and they have a bit of a bonding moment. And I feel the need to emphasize that moment because it does play in later. So they get into the inner planets, and they come up with a plan. Everyone thinks they're going for Mars, but they have skipped Mars and ended up at Luna to go for a direct attack on the Sovereign in her, like, fortified citadel. And they have a distraction combat going up in space, and Darrow and Mustang make some kind of an attack. And then the Jackal catches them, because he figured out their plan. And Cassius betrays them, because they're going to use him. And he kills Severo, and then takes them all to the Sovereign's bunker. And here's where the big switcheroo happens. Turns out Cassius was on their side. Severo is not dead, because they used something to, like, make his biometrics look like he was dead temporarily.
They used the same vial that they used to make Darrow appear dead at the very beginning of the first book.
To use on Severo.
Yeah. So he didn't have a heartbeat for a very long time.
Yeah.
And then they basically stabbed him with adrenaline.
Yeah, to kick his ass back.
It was like some chili sauce or something stupid.
No, it wasn't. They call it that. So it was basically, so when Darrow talked to his uncle, he described it as, like, this, you know, grandma's brew or something like that, or whatever.
Yeah.
It was some concoction of, like, adrenaline, stimulants, and drugs that just basically, like, kickstarts the heart again. And so they pull this big switcheroo. Aja finally dies. Oh, by the way, she didn't die on the ice field. She came back.
Yeah.
So they finally kill her. They kill off the Sovereign's guards, and then big old thing, Cassius and Darrow kind of make amends. Well, they have obviously made amends. And he helps them overthrow the Sovereign. And the book ends with this interesting little bit where between Darrow and Mustang.
I think it's worth mentioning the thing with the Queen's son.
Oh, sorry, it's been a while. The end of the book. What happens with him?
I see. I'm trying to remember. But I remember it being very important because.
Well, he's in the room.
He basically agrees, like, that she should die or something.
Yeah. So I remember this. So the person who. The Queen's son who gets the Sovereign's son who gets, like, kidnapped by Severo in the second book, and that's their whole bargaining chip when they're escaping. He's like convinced that, you know, something's wrong and rotten in the society, and decides that, you know, his grandmother has to die, and agrees to her execution. She dies, and then I don't know if he's supposed to take over or if he's going to restore the Senate or something like that, but
he doesn't take it, but he is definitely allowed to live. Like, it's decided that nothing was his fault, and he should not be prosecuted for the actions of his mother.
And the reason the ending didn't really stick. That part of the ending didn't really stick with me. The whole political thing at the end, because what happens next is more what I care about.
I don't like the Mustang thing, is what I was going to say. Go on.
Okay. Well, the Mustang interaction, again, also is not what I care about, but I like the way that they ended it. And that's that, like, they kind of cut, to a few months later, and Darrow is talking with Mustang, and they're basically having a little heart-to-heart. But the implication of what they're talking about is that they've done it. They've accomplished the revolution. It's not complete chaos, but there's so much unknown now. They have, carte blanche to create a new society, and there's trepidation in that. There's relief that, we've done it, we've accomplished our goal, but there's now trepidation. What do we do next? How do we make sure that we make something better and not just devolve into chaos? And that's the feeling of that last conversation that they have. And I really like that they left it a bit vague at the end of that book.
So Mustang becomes sovereign.
Mustang what? Sorry, you cut out there.
Mustang becomes sovereign. And Victra becomes her... Was it Victra? I think. Becomes her second, her personal aide.
Yeah.
Darrow and Mustang get married.
Yep.
Victra and Severa get married.
Yep. But they got married on the ship. That was earlier.
Yeah, that's true. But we skipped over it.
Yeah, again, a lot of the interpersonal stuff I skipped over because it's not key to the plot. But go on. Sorry.
Both weds. All weds. Both the
newlyweds.
The two relationships both have children. Darrow has a little girl, I think.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Or was it a little boy?
I don't remember.
Anyway, and then Severa has the other.
The opposite of that, and the implication being what?
Yeah. And that is... so they are established as the most upper echelons of society, and their children play some part in the next series.
Yeah, the 3 books that come after this, which I may read, but we're probably not going to...
3 books. I think there's only 1 book out at the moment.
Oh, really? Okay.
I think I haven't checked in a year.
But again, I may check. I may read them, but I doubt I'll talk about them this extensively on the podcast.
Maybe you'll like it. The biggest problem for me was that they switched around the way that they read the audiobook.
Oh, right, with the multiple things. But the thing is, yeah, I've read audiobooks where they did have multiple voice actors, and it was pretty good. So, anyway, we're over 2 hours, but we can. I want to spend at least 10 minutes kind of just talking about the series as a whole, thoughts, feelings, whatever. So the first thing, I like the ending. It's vague and it leaves it a bit open-ended, but I like the fact that they tied up all of the loose threads, and that they actually they accomplished their goal, but they didn't just celebrate it yay, we accomplished our goal, everything's gonna be great now. They were we accomplished our goal, and if hopefully things will be great. That was the impression I got.
I liked how when they're walking out the bunker with the scepter, every room they walked into, there was basically a whole facility full of enemies, and then the moment people saw them holding the scepter, they just down tools. The occasional person would try and attack them, and then just get shot in the back by their allies.
Right, because they realized that change of power. Anyone dumb enough not to notice this is the whole.
This isn't a lost battle. This is a lost war.
Yeah, it's not the whole. The king is dead. Long live the king. Long live the king.
Yeah. I thought that was pretty cool. And I did kind of like the fact that the little kid whose name I still can't. It begins with an L, I'm sure.
Lysander?
Lysander, that's the one.
I'm surprised I remember that. He was such an insubstantial character.
I don't know. I liked him, and I think it's a shame we didn't hear more from him, because I thought he was a really good character.
The thing is, it's always an interesting character. Some forms of media abuse this, but you can do a lot with the child thrust into like a very difficult situation character, which I think is what he is. He's a kid, but he's been thrust into a situation that is like he's essentially become the heir to an empire in the middle of a civil war. And he's like what, 15, 14, something like that. I don't know. I can't remember.
He's pretty young.
He's pretty young.
I think a lot younger than that, to be fair.
Yeah, he may actually. I may be giving him like too many years, but still, same idea.
But yeah, so.
So.
Do you want me to give you a brief idea of what happens in the next book? To maybe like, give you a taste, or whether you want to do it or not.
I'd rather like dwell more on kind of a retrospective, because I think this book it tackles a lot of commonly tackled topics, but it tackles them right. Like a lot of the times when you have books about revolution, they either glorify the revolutionaries or they vilify them. This book did neither.
Okay, I know a good way to put it, without giving you any content.
Okay, go on.
This series was about, as you said, a revolution. It was about changing the society as a whole.
Yeah.
The next book talks about what happens within that society. They're not changing the society more. They're talking about a situation that happens within that society.
They took it down to a ground floor level.
Yeah, they talk about this. It's no longer lords of spaceships flying around blowing people with nukes. Blowing people with nukes? It's about, it goes back down to the common man and his struggle in this new society.
Okay. I could see that. I mean, if it done right, it could be interesting.
I probably didn't give it enough credit. But yeah.
It's worked in other forms of media. So, a similar parallel, the Song of Ice and Fire series, better known as Game of Thrones. The books, the main books, are all at that higher level. They touch on the common man a little bit, but it's really about the political machinations of the upper class. But they have had other books. There's one called Hedge Knight. There's a couple others where they do side stories about the common man in that society, like the person who is at the ground level, not at this high up like lord status.
Jon Snow.
Not him. He's still up. He's still in the upper class.
I mean, he was a common man at the beginning.
He was the bastard son of a lord. Like he had a lot more privilege than.
He was a bastard, exactly.
Yeah, but he was still treated like the son of a lord.
Yeah.
Anyway, not to get into a whole nother book series. But final thoughts on that series as a whole. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
One of my greatest series I've ever read. Considering
I plowed through the thing in less than 2 months.
Yeah, you were trying to space it out.
Yeah, I took a break on book 3. I took a break on book 3 to try and allow some time to pass. But book 1 and 2, I'd finished them in 3 weeks for both of them. So very good series, very good characters, and they do interpersonal and inter-character interactions so well in the books. We mostly touched on the plot, and I chose a few key scenes to kind of go over, but they do it so well in the actual series. Definitely worth a read. If you even if you don't like sci-fi, this is more about, character drama than it is about sci-fi. But there are cool sci-fi elements.
Yeah. They definitely mix in a bit of romance, a bit of a whole bunch of different categories in one.
Yeah. All right. I don't want to belabor this too long. Any final thoughts from you on the series, and then I'll close this out.
I'm not running the series, just if anyone at home has any ideas for great sounding books, send us suggestions, and we may well end up having a look if it piques our interest.
I mean, I know I'm a very prolific reader, so I'll probably take a look.
Pick him up.
Yeah. All right. Let's close it out there. This is going to be the end of it. God, what episode is this? 3. No. Not segment 3. Episode. It's the end of the podcast. This is going to be...
You said segments, I said 3. You said episode, I said 56.
Shut the fuck up. This is going to be the end of episode 56 of the TMCJ podcast. Thank you all. Thank you all for listening. And you'll hear us again next week.
Penguins!